Let's talk about another contradiction in the Bible. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and the fit for this video is the Dark Knight. There are two very different accounts of Judas's death in the New Testament. The shorter and more basic one is found in the book of Acts. Chapter 1, verses 18 and 19 says that Judas had acquired a field with the money that he was paid to betray Jesus, and he was on that field, and says he fell headlong and burst in the middle, and his splanchna, his bowels, gushed out. And knowledge of that event spread around Jerusalem, and so that field became known as Akeldama, the field of blood. Matthew has a very different story. In Matthew 27, starting in verse 3, Judas feels regret for what he did, goes back to the chief priests with the money that they paid him, says, I have betrayed innocent blood. And they said, not our problem, dude. And so he throws the money into the temple, and the text just says he went and hanged himself. And then the chief priests, because the money is blood money that they paid to have Jesus killed, they say it's not lawful to put it in the treasury. We've got to do something with this right now. So they use it to buy the potter's field so that they have a place to bury foreigners. And because that field was purchased with blood money, that field became known as the field of blood. And all this was done in order to fulfill this prophecy that Matthew says came from Jeremiah, but which is actually from Zechariah. And this fits with Matthew's MO of happily altering the way these stories are told so that they can more clearly and more directly fulfill Hebrew Bible prophecies. And so we have two very clearly contradictory accounts. Now, an apologist approaching this is going to begin from the premise that if there is any possible way for these two accounts to be reconciled, it is not a contradiction. And what this does is this lowers the bar to underground, basically, because it gives you the liberty to imagine and gin up any number of scenarios that you want in order to make those dots connect. And as long as they're not physically impossible, this means it can be Russell's teapot out there in space. As long as it is not physically impossible, then the contradiction has been made to go away. And given this liberty, we can make pretty much anything reconcilable. But here what they're going to do is make arguments about, Judas can be said to have acquired the field because it was the money that he had that was used to purchase the field, and he could have hanged himself, and then a freak gust of wind blew him sideways and broke the rope, and so he could have fallen head first, and that's what caused him to burst asunder. And there are ways to get around this that just involve imagining all these scenarios. And anyone not already committed to the univocality of the text sees this for what it is and knows that none of this is plausible. But it's not physically impossible. And the people who are trying to reconcile these accounts are not concerned for what's most likely. They're not even concerned for what's plausible. They're concerned for ginning up whatever little sliver of not impossible they can, because they want to believe, and the only validation they need is that tiny little sliver of, it's not physically impossible. And so the performance of apologetics is not intended to convince scholars. It's not intended to convince people who don't already accept these dogmas. The performance of apologetics is the performance of validity to people who already believe and just want something to grasp onto to make them feel validated in their belief. So when you see apologists make these arguments, their concern is not for the truth. Their concern is not for what's most likely. Their concern is for protecting a dogma and performing validity so other people can feel protected in their dogmas as well. That is the purpose of apologetics.